Hey everyone, Vale here, and today we're going to be going over 5 quick tips to help you climb ranks with Thresh. So let's kick it off with tip number 1, death sentence tricks. So with Thresh's Q, there's a nifty trick you can do to where you turn your body away from your enemies or in a position that is not facing towards them and still hook in your desired direction to catch players off guard. Your W actually changes the direction you're facing to, so you can combine that with this trick too to make it even more effective. So most Thresh players tend to throw their hooks in a pretty predictable manner, running at you and then guessing how you like to dodge. But as you can see in this clip, Thresh intentionally positions his body to be facing away from the Tristana. Now the hook direction is less telegraphed during the wind up and gets a lot of pressure and summoners out of them in the process. One thing that some Thresh players forget is that when you land your hook as Thresh, your target is dragged towards you twice. In some cases, this can actually be used to drag an opponent over some smaller walls. Successfully bringing them over the wall forces them to path around the terrain and will most likely result in a kill. Some areas where this works, for example, are around river, tribush, and near the raptors or wolves. Bear in mind that this only works on the smaller walls and only if you hook them in a straight line, otherwise sometimes you won't even get them to budge. One last thing to mention about Thresh's Q is that most of the time simply being alive and in lane with your hook ready is actually the most effective way to play him. Basically, this will just give you complete control of the lane. The enemy AD carrier will be forced to hide behind minions and they will have to respect you at all times unless they're super far ahead and can just slap you when you engage. By saving your hook, you allow the lane to resume and allow your AD carry to farm. However, if you waste your hook and miss it frequently, it will leave you and your teammate completely open and it invites enemy 2v2s. Sometimes it's best to keep the threat of that hook rather than throwing it out for free. So tip number 2 is all about landing your hook easier. We've told you a cheeky way to catch enemies off guard with your death sentence, and now we're going to try and teach you how to hit it easier. With most skillshot champions, and especially so with supports like Thresh and Blitzcrank, you're going to be playing mind games with your lane opponents in which way they decide to dodge. Typically when dodging skill shots, your enemy has 3 options: juke backwards, stand still, or carry on walking. All 3 of these options are completely acceptable and they are heavily decided by luck. However, you can easily learn your opponent's dodging habits and they may be inclined to keep to the same habit. If you recognise their usual pattern of dodging and they don't mix it up by choosing a different of these 3 options, you can completely abuse them and land hooks the majority of the time. You can apply this logic with most skill shots, so learning this technique will not only improve your game significantly on Thresh, but also as skill shot champions across the board, so definitely something to practice. One other thing to mention about landing this ability is to simply wait for allied CC before using it. If this isn't an option, try to get in range to Flay first to make landing your Q easier. Any form of crowd control, whether it be hard CC like a stun or just a slow, will make your life a ton easier and help you land a lot more hooks. Tip number 3 is all about Thresh's Lantern. Aside from getting assists, granting vision, collecting souls and saving your teammates' lives, there are a few other great things you can do with this ability. First off, if you flash or move in any way whilst your teammate has clicked your lantern, they will come with you. This can be exceptionally useful when you're getting ganked, so if you're unsure and expecting someone to come bot lane, sit slightly further back, let your AD carry farm and then lantern them out for free. You can also throw your lantern and your flash after your Q1 connects, and then the lantern won't disappear until you land on your target with your Q2, even if you're out of range. This can be used pretty uniquely and can create some monstrous outplays. Thresh's Lantern can also be teleported to, which can allow for some pretty creative teleport ganks, especially if you're out of wards and in the middle of nowhere. This creates a fantastic opportunity for your teammates to join the fight. The reason this is possible is because the middle of the lantern is coded as a minion, which means players with targeted dashes can hop to it at Lee Sin's W or Jax's Q. Those instances are pretty niche, but for example in this clip you can see that if you use your lantern around towers, you can actually minion block your opponent and give them little room to dodge or escape, which sets an easy lineup to land your hook. One of the most unique ways to be effective in the lane phase as Thresh is to bluff a lane gank. If you throw out your lantern behind you or at an off angle and walk up aggressively, you can bluff a gank to ease pressure off of you and your AD carry. A great time to do this is when you need to reset the minion wave if you're being frozen out of farm, or if by doing this you can deny the enemy AD carry a decent cannon wave. This action may seem risky, but if the enemy bot lane has no vision or information on your boxside jungle, they have no option but to respect you. This strategy is not something you can repeat often as they will expect you to do it, but then you can go ahead and double bluff them by actually lantern ganking with your jungler in a similar way to the boy who cried wolf. Tip number 4 is a bit of a quick tip and it's just a few things you can do with Flay. Everyone should know by now that Thresh's E can interrupt dashes, which works when playing against defensive dashes like an Alistair Headbutt or Leona Zenith Blade, but also works when your enemies are trying to escape. You can use your Flay whilst you're flying into an enemy with your Q2. This is a great way to lock up extra opponents on the way to your target, or save some time whilst locking them down. Flay actually has a longer range when you use it diagonally, as the tip of the skill shot can still connect where the usual range will be at its limit. This is an amazing way to just about catch those enemies that are trying to escape. One of the most core ways to use Thresh's Flay is to combine it with Thresh's ultimate. Once you've used your ultimate, flay your opponent into it for a crazy slow and a bit more extra damage. Now we're moving on to the last tip of the day, and yep, you guessed it, it's all about matchups. The 3 matchups we're going to go over today for Thresh are Leona, Morgana and Lulu. First off, let's talk about Lulu. So Lulu is a pretty annoying champion to play against, especially in the later stages of the game, where she can really abuse her peeling and utility. The key to playing against Lulu is to punish her early game and set her as far behind as possible, so she's just stupidly easy to kill. As Thresh, there are a few things that you'll need to think about in this lane, the most important one being her polymorph. If you see that she wastes it, make sure you punish her for it. She has no real way to shut you down when this ability is on cooldown. Aside from that, make sure you're not taking any free harass, and don't throw out your hook too often, as if you miss it, this will allow her to poke you down for free. Remember to utilise the Fog of War, lane brushes and control wards to set up easy picks on her and take her out. The next matchup is Leona. So Thresh versus Leona is now a classic matchup in League of Legends. It's been played for donkey's years by now, and most support mains will be familiar with it on either side. The most important thing to think about in this lane is to flay her Zenith Blade. Leona needs to land this ability to gap close and to land her follow-up stun. Make sure you're ready and waiting to react to this. You can also really utilise your Lantern well in this lane. Thresh's Lantern can easily save an AD carry who Leona is running towards. Quite often, Leona will run towards her enemy with Q and then follow up with the Zenith Blade, so being mindful of this and preparing your Lantern is an easy way to counter it. Once you're both level 6, this usually becomes a who lands what wins the lane. If you land your hook and flay her E, you will win the fight. If she lands her E or her R, you're going to struggle to peel and win those fights. Due to Leona's tankiness, you will be more successful when trying to focus on hooking the AD carry here and flaying Leona as she tries to engage onto yours. Third and final matchup for today is Morgana. So one of the main things that Thresh can really struggle with in lane is oppressive poke and harass. Champions like Brand and Zyra can really cause him a problem that way, but Morgana also has an element of this in her kit with her Q, W and auto attacks. You'll want to avoid taking this harass as much as possible, as it will simply prevent your ability to control the lane and search for picks with your hook. The second main thing to think about when facing Morgana is obviously her spell shield. This can be key to winning or losing fights and trades, and learning how to play around it is key. The best way to do this is to try and bait it out beforehand. Run at her AD to force it without actually using any of your abilities. Throw a Lantern behind you and pretend you're setting up a gank, or just simply bait it on one target and then switch to the unshielded target. Either way, get used to mixing it up, baiting it out, and then punishing her for it when it's down. Aside from that, try to stay behind minions to avoid getting hit by her binding, and if you have to, block it from your AD carry to prevent them getting killed instead. When Morgana has her ultimate, try to use your Lantern to help your AD carry from being caught inside the tether. It's really easy for Morgana to chain that into a binding, so avoiding it is essential. Okay guys, well that's going to wrap up our Thresh 5 tips guide. We hope it helped and we hope to see you all again soon. Take care.